In a small town filled with hopes and dreams, there is a park where children gather. The park is vibrant, with lush trees, blooming flowers, and the sound of children's laughter filling the air. This is where we meet Keisha, a little black girl with a bright smile that can light up anyone's day. Every day after school, Keisha would run to the park, a place where she could be whoever she wanted to be. In her imagination, she was a hero, a singer, or even a queen. She was surrounded by her friends, all children from diverse backgrounds. They played together, supported each other, and shared happiness. One sunny afternoon, Keisha was playing hide and seek with her friends. She hid behind thick bushes, feeling her heart race with excitement. 1, 2, 3. The sound of her friends counting made her heart flutter. Keisha tried to stifle her laughter and waited patiently. When she finally emerged from her hiding spot, she saw the cheerful faces of her friends. They all laughed, running freely with the joy that only children could feel. However, behind the laughter and joy, there was a tension that Keisha often did not realize. The community around this park was sometimes unfriendly, and the children often became targets of prejudice. On the other side of the park, there was a police officer named Officer Tim Blake watching with a skeptical gaze. That day he was on his usual patrol, but something made him uneasy. Seeing a group of children, especially black children, always triggered feelings of suspicion in him. He had been raised with the belief that order must be maintained, and sometimes that meant acting harshly. Why do they always gather here, Blake thought. What are they planning? He ignored the children's happiness and focused more on the worry it caused him. He did not know that in Keisha's life, simple happiness and dreams were everything. Keisha ran towards her friends, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. She jumped into the game, and it seemed like nothing in the world could stop her. She did not realize that injustice was lurking in the corners of the park. As the sun began to set, long shadows started to approach. Keisha's joy suddenly halted when she saw Blake approaching her. His face looked tense, and Keisha felt the tension in the air. She sensed a bad omen, as if a storm was coming to her colorful little world. At the same time, Blake decided it was time to act. With mixed feelings of conviction and uncertainty, he approached Keisha. He felt that he was doing his duty, but he did not realize that behind his actions, many lives would be affected. The story in this park has just begun, and the challenges that Keisha and her family will face will change everything. In a world full of hopes and dreams, sometimes bitter truths must be faced, and justice must be fought for. Officer Tim Blake stood at the corner of the park, his dark blue police shirt looking tense on his body. Every time he was on patrol, his eyes were always sharp, ready to detect any potential threat. In his view, every small action could be a sign of a bigger problem. That day, his suspicion and hatred for what he did not know grew stronger. Blake was a veteran in the city police force. He had faced various dangerous situations and gained much experience in maintaining order. However, his experience also shaped his view of the world, and that was the problem. From the beginning of his career, he had been bombarded with negative news about crime, and it was not uncommon for cases involving black people to be the main highlight. He felt that his duty was to protect the community, but deep down he had grown deep-seated prejudices. Over time, his prejudiced attitude became more ingrained, making him unable to see the world from a broader perspective. That day, seeing Keisha playing with her friends, his mind was filled with doubt. Why did these children look so happy? Didn't they realize how dangerous the outside world was? How could they have fun in this park without fear? Unknowingly, these feelings made him act in a way that would change many lives, including Keisha's life. When Keisha disappeared behind the bushes to hide, Blake began to feel uneasy. He felt the need to check the situation. With steady steps, he walked forward, watching the children playing. His heart trembled, not from fear, but from the need to control. Children shouldn't be here alone, he whispered to himself. They could be up to no good. As Blake approached Keisha and her friends, he began to inspect the small bag beside the girl. Hey kids, he greeted with an authoritative tone. What are you doing here without adult supervision? Keisha, who had just come out of her hiding spot, felt her eyes sparkle with excitement when she saw the police officer. However, seeing Blake's stern expression, her heart trembled. We're just playing, sir, she answered softly. Blake ignored the answer. He focused his attention on Keisha and her friends. You shouldn't be playing here. It's dangerous. Who is watching over you? Keisha began to feel pressured. She felt as if all her joy had disappeared. My dad will be here, sir. He's just a little late, she said, trying to explain, but her voice was barely audible. Blake just frowned. We need to check your bag, little girl. Don't worry, I'm just doing my job. He did not realize that this action not only humiliated Keisha but also damaged her confidence and happiness. In his mind, he believed he was doing the right thing. However, for Keisha, the world that was supposed to be safe and cheerful suddenly became very frightening. Meanwhile, at home, Marcus Johnson, Keisha's father, was preparing to go to the park. He was an experienced FBI agent with a deep understanding of the injustices in society. Although he worked hard to give Keisha a good life, he was also aware of the challenges his daughter faced. Keisha must be at the park by now, he thought as he looked at the clock on the wall. She must be having fun with her friends. Marcus straightened his suit, and before leaving the house, he reminded himself of his commitment to protect his daughter. He knew that the outside world could be very harsh, and as a father, he had to always be ready. As Marcus entered the park, he saw a group of children playing. Their laughter filled the air, but when he looked towards the playground, his worry emerged. He saw Blake standing near Keisha, and there was something in Blake's expression that made him uneasy. No, this is not good, Marcus whispered to himself. I have to go there. He ran towards Keisha, but by then, Blake had already started taking unacceptable actions. He approached Keisha with handcuffs in hand, creating a very tense atmosphere. Keisha, feeling cornered, looked at her father with fearful eyes. She did not understand why the police officer wanted to disturb her game, and now everything felt chaotic. Keisha, Marcus shouted as he arrived at the scene. Let go of my daughter right now. Marcus's firm voice echoed in the air, drawing everyone's attention in the park. The park, full of happiness and laughter, suddenly became silent. All eyes were on the conflict that had just occurred. Officer Blake, feeling pressured by Marcus's arrival, tried to maintain his authority. She broke the law. This child shouldn't be here alone, he shouted, but deep down he felt anxiety and uncertainty. In this very tense situation, Keisha felt trapped between the world she knew and the painful reality. She did not know what to do, but one thing was certain: she wanted justice. And at that moment, all hope and helplessness merged into one. The atmosphere in the park was now tense, filled with uncertainty. Keisha, with her hands cuffed, stood in the middle of the curious and worried crowd. Around her, the other children whispered to each other, anxious about the developing situation. On one side, Officer Tim Blake stood with a stern and confident face, while on the other, Marcus Johnson approached his daughter with determination in his eyes. Let her go, Blake, Marcus said, his voice firm and authoritative. He stood in front of the officer, creating a barrier between Blake and Keisha. She hasn't done anything wrong. You're assuming based on her skin color. Blake felt a wave of anger and confusion flow through him. This child shouldn't be here unsupervised, he replied, trying to maintain his stance. However, his tone began to waver. He didn't realize that the man standing before him was a respected FBI agent. Keisha looked at her father's face, her eyes shining with hope. She knew Marcus would protect her, but fear still enveloped her heart. Shame and confusion raged within her. Why was the officer doing this? Why had everything changed so quickly? Marcus tried to reach for Keisha's cuffed hands, but Blake pulled her away. You have no right to interfere with the investigation, he said, trying to assert his authority. This is a matter of security. Security, Marcus replied, his voice filled with emotion. Keisha is just a child. She hasn't done anything but play. Your actions are what's threatening the children's safety here. The words echoed in the air, adding to the tension. People around began taking out their phones to record the incident, sensing that this moment was more than just an ordinary event. They wanted to see how the situation would unfold. Keisha felt hope and uncertainty battling within her. She wanted her father to save her, but she also didn't want to make things worse. She knew this situation was not just about her, but about something much larger, about justice, about society's perception of those who are different. Blake was unwilling to back down. He tried to reinforce his authority. I'm just doing my job, and I'll do whatever it takes to maintain order here. Children like her are potential problems. Those words pierced Keisha's heart like a dagger. She felt accused without clear reason. But I'm just a kid, she said, her voice trembling. I didn't do anything. Marcus looked at his daughter, his heart breaking seeing her experience such an unfair ordeal. He took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. Keisha, don't be afraid. You did nothing wrong. We'll face this together. Blake, feeling the pressure from Marcus in the gathering crowd, started to doubt. He realized that Marcus was not just any father, he was an agent with the power to make a voice and change. However, even though he felt cornered, Blake wasn't ready to admit fault. If you don't release her, I will file a formal complaint, Marcus said firmly, his voice full of emphasis. What you're doing is not only wrong but also illegal. You have no right to humiliate a child in public. The tension grew hotter. Uncertainty enveloped everyone. Marcus was speaking not just as a father, but as a professional who understood the law. He knew that Blake was violating protocol by treating Keisha like a criminal. Meanwhile, Keisha's heart raced. She saw her father's determined face, and the fear began to subside a little. She felt supported, but the situation remained threatening. She wanted to speak more, to tell everyone that she was innocent. Blake felt the mounting pressure. The decision to humiliate a child in public now felt increasingly heavy. He knew that his decision could ruin his reputation and harm Keisha's life. However, the ego and prejudice that had shaped his life hindered his ability to back down. "Why are you protecting this child?" he asked, his voice losing firmness. She could be part of something bigger. Marcus felt the injustice in the question. "She's my daughter. She's an innocent child. And you must remember that every action you take has consequences. I'll protect her, no matter what happens." Keisha felt strength in her father's words. Even though the tension was peaking, she knew they would fight for the truth. Slowly, she reached for Marcus's hand, feeling the support that bolstered her spirit. "Release me," Sir Keisha said with a braver voice. "I didn't do anything wrong. Please don't let this continue." Hearing his daughter's words, Marcus looked at Blake with determination. "Now, Blake, choose. Do you want to stop this and release her, or do you want to continue down this path and face the consequences?" The decision was in Blake's hands, and at that moment he began to feel the pressure from the crowd. The atmosphere grew tenser, and everyone awaited the answer from the man who was supposed to protect. Keisha prayed silently, hoping that justice would be on her side. She wanted to feel safe and happy again. Amid the park's noise, a small hope grew that there was light at the end of the tunnel, that they could change everything. After the incident in the park, Keisha and Marcus's lives were no longer the same. Keisha, who was once just a little girl playing in the park, became the center of attention in their community. News of the incident spread quickly, and people began talking about what had happened. Marcus felt the impact of all this, both positive and negative. Meanwhile, Officer Tim Blake also felt the significant effects of the incident. He faced colleagues who questioned his decision. Many of them saw Blake's actions as wrong and risky. Some even began to doubt his commitment to police values. In the days following the incident, Marcus tried to give Keisha positive experiences. He wanted his daughter to know that the world was not always filled with injustice and fear. Marcus took Keisha to various community events, introducing her to people from different backgrounds. He hoped to provide his daughter with a broader perspective. One day, as Marcus and Keisha attended a community day event, they saw many people gathered. There were tents, games, and various fun activities. Keisha felt the excitement in the air. She was very excited to play with other children without feeling afraid. However, amidst the fun, Keisha couldn't shake thoughts of the park incident. She felt there was something unresolved. She wanted to talk about her pain, about how the situation had affected her life. She observed the people around her and wondered if they understood how sad it was when someone who was supposed to protect her made her feel threatened instead. Sensing his daughter's wave of emotions, Marcus tried to explain further. "Keisha, what happened in the park wasn't your fault. Sometimes people don't understand. They get stuck in a narrow way of thinking, and that can be very hurtful." Keisha nodded but still felt confused. "But Dad, why can people be like that? Why can't they see that I'm just a little girl who wants to play?" That question made Marcus think. He wanted to give the right answer, but he knew there was no simple answer. "Some people may feel threatened by things they don't know, Keisha. That's why it's important for us to talk and share our experiences so others can understand." At the same time, Blake was also trying to understand his situation. He began self-reflecting and discussing the incident with his colleagues. In many conversations, he found that many other officers felt the same way: fear of the unknown, prejudices buried in uncertainty. Blake started attending community meetings, listening to the voices of the people, and trying to understand their perspectives. He realized that every police action could have a significant impact, especially on children. The more he interacted with the community, the more he realized that he needed to build bridges, not walls. One night, while attending a community meeting, Blake heard a mother talk about how her child experienced discrimination at school. The woman's words reminded Blake of Keisha. He saw how important it was to listen and learn from others' experiences. It was the first step in creating change. When the meeting ended, Blake realized he needed to take further steps. He wanted to talk to Marcus and Keisha. He wanted to apologize directly and show that he truly wanted to change his perspective. Marcus and Keisha did not expect Blake to reach out to them. One afternoon, while they were playing in their backyard, Marcus received a message from Blake. "I want to talk to you," it read. Marcus raised his eyebrows, feeling skeptical but also curious. "Dad, who is it?" asked Keisha, looking at her father with a puzzled expression. "It's the police officer who embarrassed you in the park," Marcus answered softly. "He wants to talk to us." "Why does he want to talk?" Keisha asked, her voice reflecting disbelief. "I don't know, Keisha. But maybe he wants to apologize or explain himself," Marcus said, weighing the decision to meet. After discussing it, they agreed to meet with Blake at a small cafe near their home. When the day of the meeting arrived, Keisha felt anxious. She wanted to hear what Blake had to say, but she also didn't want to feel the same pain again. Blake arrived early and sat in a corner of the cafe, looking nervous. When Marcus and Keisha walked in, he stood up and greeted them with an awkward smile. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice full of sincerity. Marcus nodded and sat down. Keisha remained standing next to her father, staring at Blake with questioning eyes. "I want to apologize," Blake began, looking at Keisha. "What I did in the park was not right. I let my prejudices control my actions, and I am deeply sorry. You should not have gone through that." Keisha was silent for a moment, processing Blake's words. She wanted to feel angry, but in her heart, she also felt hope. "Why did you do it?" she asked, her voice full of sincerity. "I was just a little girl who wanted to play." Blake took a deep breath. "I got caught up in a narrow way of thinking. I didn't see you as a child, but as something bigger, a threat. And that was wrong. I want to learn, and I want to listen to your story." Marcus, listening carefully, felt the sincerity in Blake's words. "We all need to learn from our mistakes," he said. "But for that, we have to talk to each other." That moment paved the way for a deeper discussion. Keisha began sharing her experience, how the incident made her feel, and why it was so important not to be judged based on her skin color. Blake listened intently, trying to understand her perspective. As the conversation continued, Marcus also shared his experience as a father and FBI agent. He explained the challenges faced by people in their community and why dialogue was key to understanding each other. With every word spoken, the bridge between Blake and the Johnson family began to form. Keisha felt the power of speaking out, and Blake realized that awareness and empathy could spark change. After hours of talking, they parted ways with a handshake. Keisha felt relieved she was no longer trapped in fear. She had shared her voice and in doing so helped someone to change. That night, as they walked home, Keisha smiled. "Dad, maybe things can change," she said. "Maybe we can help people understand each other." Marcus felt proud. "You're right, Keisha. We can start with small steps, and every change begins with one step." In their hearts, they knew their journey had just begun. They would continue to speak, listen, and build bridges toward understanding and justice. Following the transformative meeting between Keisha, Marcus, and Officer Blake, a wave of positivity began to flow through their community. Marcus and Keisha decided to take further steps, striving to bring more people together to discuss justice, empathy, and the importance of listening to one another. They started by organizing a community meeting in the park, the very place where the incident had occurred. Marcus invited everyone to come and share their stories. He believed that by talking they could build stronger bonds among the residents and pave the way for better understanding. The news of the meeting spread, and the response was overwhelmingly positive. Many people from diverse backgrounds and ages expressed interest in attending. Keisha felt both excited and nervous. She knew this was an opportunity to change the narrative, but she also felt the weight of speaking in front of many people. The day of the meeting arrived. The usually quiet park was now filled with laughter and conversation. There were tents, food, and various engaging activities. Keisha and Marcus saw many familiar faces, as well as many new ones. The spirit of togetherness was palpable. When the event started, Marcus took the microphone and introduced himself. "Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming. Today we gathered to share our stories and listen to each other. We all have different experiences, but we are all part of this community. Let's use this opportunity to learn and grow together." Keisha stood beside her father, feeling a bit anxious. She looked at the diverse crowd, from children to adults, and felt the tension in the air. When Marcus invited her to speak, her heart raced. Hello everyone," Keisha began, her voice slightly trembling. "I'm Keisha. I want to share my story about what happened in the park a few weeks ago." She continued to recount her experience, how the fear and shame overwhelmed her when Officer Blake arrested her. She spoke about the pain she felt when someone who was supposed to protect her humiliated her instead. "I don't want any other child to feel the same way," she said, tears welling up in her eyes. "We all just want to play and feel safe. I hope we can help each other make the world better." The crowd was silent, many visibly moved. Some parents shed tears reminded of their own experiences. Keisha's courage to speak inspired everyone. After Keisha, several people from the crowd began to speak. They shared their own stories, personal experiences of discrimination, prejudice, and hopes for the future. A mother spoke about how her child was often bullied because of their skin color. A teenager talked about their encounters with the police and how they felt ignored and overlooked. Every story shared reinforced Marcus and Keisha's message, the importance of listening to and learning from each other. When one voice spoke up, others followed, creating a strong support network among them. In the midst of the event, Officer Blake arrived. He felt nervous about coming, but after hearing about the meeting, he knew he had to be there. As he stood before the crowd, the atmosphere became tense. "Good afternoon, everyone," he said, his voice steady despite the tension. "I am here to listen and learn. I want to apologize for my past actions. I know I hurt Keisha and many people in this community. I want to be a better officer, and for that I need to hear your stories." Some in the crowd were surprised by his apology. However, seeing the sincerity in his eyes, many began to clap. It was an important step toward reconciliation. Keisha looked at her father, and Marcus smiled proudly at his daughter. They saw how Keisha's bravery had sparked change, not just for herself, but for the entire community. Over time, community meetings became a monthly routine. They scheduled time to talk, discuss, and address the issues they faced. Many residents began organizing social activities, creating spaces for positive interactions between the community and the police. Keisha felt proud to be part of this change. She took the initiative to help design activities for children, ensuring that all kids in the community felt welcomed and safe. She and her friends began campaigns about the importance of mutual respect and how everyone had the right to feel safe in their environment. Blake also worked hard to support community initiatives. He attended every meeting, answered questions, and tried to build better relationships with the residents. In the process, he learned a lot from their experiences and perspectives. One day, while interacting with children in the park, Blake realized how crucial the role of the police was in creating a sense of safety for the community. He was determined to be a bridge between the police and the community, striving to eliminate the prejudice and fear that had long been barriers. Keisha's courage to speak about injustice had a tremendous impact. Not only did their community feel the change, but Blake also worked to become a better officer. A spirit of togetherness and mutual support began to build among everyone. Over time, the park that once witnessed a painful incident now became a symbol of hope and unity. Children played happily, and adults chatted and laughed together. Keisha felt joy seeing everyone united, knowing their struggle had just begun. However, they wouldn't stop there. Keisha and Marcus were determined to continue fighting for justice, not just for themselves, but for everyone in their community. They wanted to ensure that everyone's voice was heard and valued. That night, as they walked home, Keisha whispered to her father, "Dad, can we do even more?" Marcus smiled and nodded. "Of course, Keisha, we'll keep fighting. Every small step we take is a step toward a better future." With the increasing number of community meetings and rising awareness, Marcus and Keisha felt optimistic about the future. However, not everyone was pleased with these changes. Some community members began to feel threatened by the new approach that emphasized transparency and dialogue. Those accustomed to the old ways became defensive, viewing the changes as a threat to the status quo. One night, after a routine meeting, Keisha and Marcus received a shocking message. They found a post on social media filled with insults and threats from a group opposing their efforts. The message read, "You shouldn't try to change what's already in place. We don't need outside influence in our affairs." Keisha felt scared as she read the message. She asked her father, "Dad, what should we do? Why are there people who don't want us to do good?" Marcus took a deep breath. "Honey, not everyone will agree with change. Some people feel comfortable with the way things are and are afraid of anything new. But we can't back down. We have to keep fighting for what's right." That night, Marcus and Keisha sat together to plan their next steps. They decided to launch an awareness campaign about the importance of dialogue and understanding. They wanted to show people that having the courage to speak and listen could bring about positive change. The campaign began with organizing an open dialogue event in the park. Marcus invited everyone to come and talk about their fears and hopes. He wanted to create a safe space for everyone to share their perspectives, regardless of their background or political views. On the day of the event, the atmosphere in the park was tense. Many people attended, but some faces looked skeptical and unfriendly. However, Marcus remained optimistic. He knew this dialogue was a crucial step toward building understanding. Keisha, who was also excited, invited her friends to join and help organize activities for children. They planned games and engaging activities to create a positive atmosphere. Keisha wanted all the kids to feel happy and safe, regardless of what was happening around them. When the event began, Marcus stood before the crowd and welcomed everyone. "Welcome to our event today. We're here to listen to each other, share stories, and try to understand each other's perspectives. We may have differences, but we're all part of this community." As the conversation progressed, some people started to share their experiences. Some talked about their fears of the police, while others explained how they felt alienated in their own community. The atmosphere began to soften, and despite the tension, everyone tried to listen attentively. However, in the middle of the event, a group of people who disagreed with Marcus and Keisha's efforts appeared. They began shouting, disrupting the speakers, and expressing their anger. "We don't need your opinions. Go back to where you belong," shouted one of them. "Wah!" Keisha saw her father trying to calm the situation, but her heart was racing. She felt very anxious and confused. She wanted everyone to listen, but now the situation was getting heated. Seeing the situation deteriorate, Marcus decided to speak. "Please, everyone. Let's discuss this calmly. We just want to share perspectives and listen to each other. This is an opportunity to talk without insulting each other." With his determined effort, Marcus managed to calm the atmosphere. However, the presence of the opposing group remained a burden in Keisha's heart. She felt that their efforts to create dialogue would not go smoothly. After the event ended, Keisha went home with mixed feelings. She felt proud to have spoken and tried to spread a positive message, but she also felt the fear of negative reactions from those who disagreed. That night, Marcus and Keisha sat in the living room, discussing the day. "Dad, what will happen if people continue to refuse to listen?" asked Keisha, her voice filled with uncertainty. Marcus looked at his daughter and smiled. "We must remember that change doesn't happen overnight. We have to keep trying, speaking, and showing them that we care. Sometimes these challenges can be opportunities to open deeper dialogue." A few weeks later, despite the challenges, their campaign started to show positive results. Some people from the community began to engage in dialogues and showed interest in changing their views. Keisha felt happy seeing small changes, but she also knew that the road to better understanding was still long. However, new challenges arose when they realized that a group of people opposing them started spreading rumors and false news about their events. They tried to tarnish Marcus and Keisha's reputation with baseless accusations. Keisha felt angry and confused. "Why are they doing this, Dad? What's wrong with just wanting to talk?" Marcus hugged his daughter. "Honey, sometimes people feel threatened by change. They prefer to maintain power in the status quo. But we must stay calm and focus on our goal." To counter the spreading rumors, Marcus and Keisha decided to take a proactive approach. They started holding informational sessions in schools and community centers to explain what was really happening and spread positive messages about the importance of dialogue. Keisha, now more confident, began speaking in front of classes and attending community events, encouraging other children to get involved. She wanted to show them that their voices mattered and could bring about change. In the midst of their efforts, Keisha also developed friendships with her peers. They began creating posters and social media campaigns together to educate people about the importance of tolerance and understanding. The community spirit began to show. Many people started joining Keisha and Marcus's efforts, forming new alliances committed to creating a better environment. Despite the ongoing challenges, they did not back down. Keisha reminded herself that this struggle was about more than just her, it was about all the children who wanted to grow up in a better world. And with every small step they took, she felt they were getting closer to that goal. Finally, that night as Keisha lay in bed, she felt optimistic. She knew they would face more challenges in the future, but with her father and her community by her side, she felt strong. "Dad, we'll keep fighting, right?" asked Keisha, looking at her father with hope. Marcus smiled, patting his daughter's back. "Of course, Keisha. We won't stop until our voices are heard." After months of striving to create positive dialogue within the community, Marcus and Keisha began to see the impact of their efforts. However, the challenges they faced remained significant. While some residents started to open up and were willing to listen, many were still trapped in old stereotypes and prejudices that were difficult to change. One afternoon, as Keisha was walking home from school, she saw a group of boys standing by the roadside talking loudly and laughing. They were mocking a young girl, Lisa, who was different from them. The girl wore a hijab and looked anxious as she tried to pass by them. Keisha's heart went out to her. Why do they have to do that, she thought. Anger and empathy grew within her. She knew how hard it was to be different, and she didn't want to see others feeling pressured like she once did. Keisha approached the group of boys and said, "Hey, why are you mocking her?" That's not nice. She just wants to walk home like you do. The boys were surprised to see Keisha speaking up. One of them, Jake, responded, "What's it to you? She looks weird with her hijab." "There's nothing weird about how she dresses. She's just different. We all have our own uniqueness," Keisha explained, trying to keep her emotions in check. "We shouldn't judge people just by their appearance." Hearing this, some of the boys seemed hesitant. Lisa, who had previously felt alienated, looked at Keisha with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. Keisha continued, "If you can treat each other with respect, we can all live better lives. We can't let stereotypes separate us." Jake and his friends fell silent. Keisha realized that she might not be able to change their views instantly, but she knew that every small step toward understanding was important. After the incident, Keisha talked to her father about her experience. She felt a strong desire to do more to combat stereotypes and promote mutual respect among her peers. "Dad, I want to organize an event at school about diversity and the importance of respecting each other. Can we do that?" Marcus beamed with pride at his daughter's enthusiasm. "Of course, Keisha. That's a wonderful idea. We can work together to plan it. Let's get your friends and teachers involved." They began planning the event, gathering Keisha's friends and sharing ideas. They wanted to create an event that was not only fun but also educational. During their discussions, Keisha said, "We could invite speakers to talk about their experiences and how we can respect each other despite our differences." Marcus agreed and started looking for speakers with relevant experiences. They managed to invite several people from various backgrounds, including a lawyer, a teacher, and a human rights activist. Everyone agreed to share their stories and explain the importance of mutual respect and understanding. The day of the event arrived, and the school hall was filled with eager students. Keisha stood beside her father, feeling a mix of nervousness and excitement. Marcus began the event by introducing the theme and explaining why it was important to understand each other. Keisha then took the microphone and said, "Welcome everyone. Today we gather to celebrate our diversity. We all have different stories, but we also have things in common. We all want to be accepted and respected." The speakers began sharing their experiences. They talked about the challenges they faced due to their backgrounds and how they overcame prejudice. Hearing these stories, many students were moved and started to understand the struggles of others. After the speaker sessions, Keisha led small group discussions where students were divided into groups and asked to share their own stories. She hoped this would encourage them to talk about personal experiences and learn from each other. In her group, Keisha saw some of her classmates starting to open up. One girl shared her experience of being bullied because of her appearance. Another student talked about feeling isolated because he didn't have many friends. Keisha felt proud to see everyone supporting and encouraging each other. The event ended successfully. Many students felt inspired and wanted to continue conversations about diversity and mutual respect at school. Keisha and Marcus went home with smiles on their faces, feeling that they had done something meaningful. However, new challenges emerged after the event. Some parents began to complain about the messages conveyed during the event, considering them too progressive and not in line with their values. They believed that the school should not be involved in such social issues. Hearing the news, Keisha felt frustrated. "Dad, why don't people see this as an opportunity to learn? Why can't they understand?" Marcus responded calmly, "Honey, not everyone will agree with our views. We can't force people to think like us. What we can do is keep talking and explaining why this is important." Keisha realized that their struggle wouldn't be easy. Nevertheless, she remained determined to continue this fight. She wanted to keep striving so that their voices would be heard and that everyone would feel valued, regardless of their differences. Alongside her father and her friends, Keisha was ready to face the next challenge. She knew that every step they took was a step toward a better future. After the event at school, Keisha and Marcus felt inspired to continue their struggle. However, they also realized that they had attracted the attention of those who were unhappy with the changes they were trying to make. Some people in the community began to doubt their good intentions, and the situation became more tense. One night, as they were planning a new event at home, there was a sudden loud knock on the door. Marcus opened it and found a group of angry-looking men standing outside. "We know what you're doing," one of them shouted, "and we don't want to see it happening in our community." Keisha felt the tension in the air. She stood behind her father, feeling scared and confused. Marcus tried to remain calm. "We just want to help this community. What's wrong with trying to make it better?" he asked. One of the men replied cynically, "You're trying to change our way of life. We don't want that. If you keep this up, we won't stay silent." After the tense encounter, Keisha felt very anxious. "Dad, what's going to happen to us? Why are they angry just because we want to talk about differences?" she asked. Marcus took a deep breath. "Sometimes people feel threatened by change, dear. They fear losing control over their way of life. We must hold on to our values and not let fear take over," he reassured her. However, the situation worsened. A few days after the encounter, news of Marcus and Keisha's efforts spread quickly in the community, and not everyone took it well. At school, they began hearing rumors about them. Some of Keisha's classmates started to distance themselves, influenced by their parents' negative attitudes. Keisha felt devastated. "Dad, my friends don't want to talk to me. They say I'm too different. It seems like everyone hates us," she lamented. "Don't let this stop you, Keisha. This is part of the struggle. We can't change people's views quickly, but we can show that we won't back down," Marcus said, trying to encourage his daughter. In the following weeks, Keisha and Marcus continued to do what they could. They held meetings at their home to discuss ways to continue the dialogue and create a safe space for everyone. They also tried to be more active on social media, spreading messages about the importance of understanding and tolerance. However, despite their efforts, the intimidation began to increase. One night, after a meeting, Keisha found a threatening message on social media. "You better stop. We won't let you ruin our community. We're watching you." When Marcus saw the message, his face turned serious. "We have to report this to the police, Keisha. This can't be ignored." But when they went to the police station to report the threat, Marcus felt hesitant. He remembered past experiences with the police that weren't always just. But they had no choice. They had to take action. At the police station, they met an officer who seemed disinterested. "What can I help you with?" he asked skeptically. Marcus explained the situation and showed the threatening message Keisha had received. The officer just nodded, looking indifferent. "We'll look into it. But don't expect too much," he said before turning and leaving them. Keisha felt hopeless. "Dad, they don't care. What should we do?" She felt like there was no safe place anymore. Marcus calmed his daughter. "We can't give up, Keisha. We have to keep fighting for justice. We'll find a way to overcome this together." In the next few days, Keisha and Marcus began to plan their fight. They realized they couldn't do it alone. They decided to reach out to their friends in the community and invite them to join their efforts. They held an emergency meeting at their home, inviting friends and trusted neighbors. Keisha spoke passionately about what was happening. "We can't let fear and hatred take over. We must unite to show that we are stronger together." The meeting attendees agreed to hold a peaceful protest in front of the police station, showing their solidarity and demanding that their voices be heard. Keisha and Marcus felt optimistic they were not alone. The day of the protest arrived, and many people from the community came with banners and placards carrying positive messages about unity and diversity. Keisha stood in front, rallying the people. "Today we show that we won't back down. We will speak for those who have no voice." Meanwhile, the opposing protesters gathered across the street. The situation became tense as both groups started shouting at each other. Marcus felt worried, but he knew they couldn't back down. Keisha stood in front of their group, trying to diffuse the tension. "We are here to talk about love and understanding, not hatred. Let's listen to each other and speak kindly." Some people in the opposing group began to calm down, but others continued to shout. As the atmosphere grew more heated, Marcus tried to stay calm. He knew they had to keep the protest peaceful. Finally, the police arrived to monitor the situation. Keisha felt anxious, thinking about what might happen. However, the same officer they had met earlier came and started talking to them. "We appreciate this peaceful demonstration, but we won't tolerate chaos. Please stay calm and respectful." Marcus and Keisha saw a potential for dialogue. They tried to explain to the officer the reasons for the protest and why they felt the need to speak out. Although the atmosphere was still tense, small steps began to show. Keisha felt that despite facing many challenges, their voices were starting to be heard. As night fell and the protest ended, Keisha went home feeling exhausted but hopeful. She knew they had taken a big step, and she wouldn't let fear stop her. Marcus looked at his daughter proudly. "You've done an amazing job, Keisha. We don't know what will happen next, but we've already made a difference." Keisha smiled, feeling a new spirit within her. She was determined to keep fighting and face the next challenges. After the school event, Keisha and Marcus felt inspired to continue their struggle. However, they also realized they had attracted the attention of those unhappy with the changes they were trying to make. Some people in the community began to doubt their good intentions, and the situation grew tense. One night, While they were planning a new event at home, there was a sudden, forceful knock on the door. Marcus opened the door to find a group of angry-looking men standing in front of their house. "We know what you're doing," one of them shouted, "and we don't want to see it happen in our community." Keisha felt the tension in the air. She stood behind her father feeling scared and confused. Marcus tried to stay calm. "We just want to help this community. What's wrong with trying to make it better?" he asked. One of the men responded with a sneer, "You're trying to change our way of life. We don't want that. If you keep this up, we won't stand by idly." After that tense encounter, Keisha felt extremely anxious. "Dad, what's going to happen to us? Why are they angry just because we want to talk about differences?" Marcus took a deep breath. "Sweetie, sometimes people feel threatened by change. They're afraid of losing control over the way things have always been. We have to hold on to our values and not let fear take over." However, the situation continued to worsen. A few days after the encounter, news about Marcus and Keisha's efforts spread quickly in the community, and not everyone received it well. At school, they started hearing rumors about them. Some of Keisha's classmates began to distance themselves, influenced by their parents' negative attitudes. Keisha felt devastated. "Dad, my friends don't want to talk to me. They say I'm too different. It feels like everyone hates us," she lamented. "Don't let this stop you, Keisha. This is part of the struggle. We can't change people's views overnight. But we can show that we won't back down," Marcus said, trying to encourage his daughter. Over the next few weeks, Keisha and Marcus continued doing what they could. They held meetings at their house to discuss how to continue the dialogue and create a safe space for everyone. They also tried to be more active on social media, spreading messages about the importance of understanding and tolerance. Despite their efforts, the intimidation began to escalate. One night, after a meeting, Keisha found a threatening message on social media. "You better stop. We won't let you ruin our community. We're watching you." When Marcus saw the message, his face turned serious. "We have to report this to the police, Keisha. This can't be ignored." However, when they went to the police station to report the threat, Marcus felt hesitant. He remembered past experiences with the police, who weren't always supportive of justice. But they had no other choice. They had to take action. At the police station, they met an officer who seemed uninterested. "What can I do for you?" he asked skeptically. Marcus explained the situation and showed the threatening message Keisha had received. The officer just nodded, appearing indifferent. "We'll look into it. But don't expect too much," he said before turning away and leaving them. Keisha felt hopeless. "Dad, they don't care. What should we do?" She felt like there was no safe place left. Marcus calmed his daughter. "We can't give up, Keisha. We have to keep fighting for justice. We'll find a way to get through this together." Over the next few days, Keisha and Marcus started to formulate a plan to fight for their rights. They realized they couldn't do it alone. They decided to reach out to their friends in the community and invite them to join the effort. They held an emergency meeting at their house, inviting trusted friends and neighbors. Keisha spoke passionately about what was happening. "We can't let fear and hatred take over. We need to unite to show that we're stronger together." The meeting attendees agreed to hold a peaceful protest in front of the police station, demonstrating their solidarity and demanding that their voices be heard. Keisha and Marcus felt optimistic they were not alone. The day the protest arrived, and many people from the community came with banners and signs bearing positive messages about unity and diversity. Keisha stood at the front, encouraging the crowd. "Today we show that we won't back down. We will speak for those who don't have a voice." Meanwhile, counter-protesters gathered across the street. The situation grew tense as the two groups began shouting at each other. Marcus felt worried, but he knew they couldn't back down. Keisha stood at the front of their group, trying to diffuse the tension. "We're here to talk about love and understanding, not hate. Let's listen to each other and speak respectfully." Some in the opposing group began to calm down, but others continued to shout. As the atmosphere grew more heated, Marcus tried to stay calm. He knew they had to keep the protest peaceful. The police eventually arrived to monitor the situation. Keisha felt anxious, thinking about what might happen. However, the same officer they had met before came over and started talking to them. "We appreciate this peaceful demonstration, but we won't tolerate any chaos. Please stay calm and respect each other." Marcus and Keisha saw an opportunity for dialogue. They tried to explain to the officer the reasons for the protest and why they felt the need to speak out. Although the atmosphere remained tense, small steps of progress began to show. Keisha felt that despite the many challenges they faced, Their voices were beginning to be heard. As night fell and the protest ended, Keisha returned home feeling exhausted but hopeful. She knew they had taken a big step, and she wouldn't let fear stop her. Marcus looked at his daughter with pride. "You did an amazing job, Keisha. We don't know what will happen next, but we've already made a difference." Keisha smiled, feeling a renewed spirit within her. She was determined to keep fighting and face the next challenges. The peaceful protest marked a turning point for Keisha and Marcus. The tension in the community remained, but the protest had drawn attention from various groups and individuals who supported their cause. Keisha and Marcus realized that to continue their fight, they needed allies. One morning, Keisha received a message from a local civil rights organization. They had heard about the protest and wanted to meet with her and Marcus. Excited, Keisha showed the message to her father. "Dad, look. They want to help us. This could be the breakthrough we need." Marcus nodded, feeling a glimmer of hope. "This is great news, Keisha. Let's meet with them and see how we can collaborate." They arranged a meeting with the organization's representatives, who were eager to support their cause. At the meeting, they discussed strategies for raising awareness and gaining more community support. The representatives also offered to provide legal assistance and help organize future events. "Your bravery has inspired many," one of the representatives said. "We're here to amplify your voices and ensure that your message reaches more people." With the organization's support, Keisha and Marcus felt more empowered. They started planning a larger community event, inviting speakers to talk about diversity, inclusion, and the importance of standing up against injustice. As they prepared for the event, they received messages of support from various community members, including teachers, parents, and local business owners. It was clear that not everyone was against them, many were just afraid to speak out. On the day of the event, the turnout was larger than they had expected. The community center was filled with people eager to learn and support the cause. Keisha felt nervous but excited as she took the stage to speak. "Thank you all for being here today," she began. "This journey hasn't been easy, but seeing all of you gives me hope. We can make a difference if we stand together and support each other." The audience applauded, and several speakers shared their stories and experiences, emphasizing the importance of unity and understanding. Marcus felt proud of his daughter and the progress they were making. After the event, a local journalist approached Keisha and Marcus, expressing interest in writing a story about their efforts. "Your story needs to be told," the journalist said. "People need to know about the positive changes you're trying to bring to this community." Keisha agreed to an interview, hoping that the story would reach more people and inspire others to join their cause. The article was published in the local newspaper, highlighting their journey and the challenges they faced. It garnered attention and sparked conversations within the community. As more people read about Keisha and Marcus's efforts, support continued to grow. They received messages from other communities facing similar challenges, asking for advice and offering solidarity. Keisha felt a sense of purpose and determination like never before. One evening, Keisha received a call from a school board member who had read the article. "I'm impressed by your courage and determination," Keisha, the board member, said. "I'd like to invite you to speak at our next meeting and share your experiences. We need to hear from students like you." Keisha felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. Speaking at the school board meeting was a significant opportunity to influence policies and create real change. She accepted the invitation, knowing that it was a chance to make a difference. At the school board meeting, Keisha spoke passionately about the importance of inclusivity and understanding in schools. She shared her experiences and the challenges she and her father had faced. The board members listened attentively, and some even expressed their support for her cause. "We need to ensure that our schools are safe and welcoming for all students," one board member said. Keisha's story is a powerful reminder of the work we need to do. After the meeting, several board members approached Keisha, offering their support and promising to work towards more inclusive policies. Keisha felt a sense of accomplishment and hope. As they left the meeting, Marcus hugged his daughter. "You were incredible, Keisha. I'm so proud of you." Keisha smiled, feeling the weight of the journey they had been on. "We've come a long way, Dad, but there's still so much more to do. I'm ready for whatever comes next." With new allies and growing support, Keisha and Marcus felt more determined than ever to continue their fight for justice and equality. They knew that the road ahead would be challenging, but they were ready to face it together with the support of their community.